Good morning, good evening, good night. I'm telling to those my YouTube audience because I don't know in which time you would like to watch it. And hello, guys. Today's lecture, as you all wanted, will be about justice. I don't know in which time my you will watch also this lecture, but I would like to take many of you message me that can you make a video about justice in our society and also general what justice means in nowadays. And I would like to share my own video about what justice mean to me and what does it mean fair like in our society. Sure, you can find many lectures, videos on YouTube, but I prefer follow my own thoughts based on my experience and observations. Uh, I will give briefly some definition about justice, but I would like to give some questions that which we have to answer to these questions in order to understand what does it mean justice, what is fair in this world and what is not, why, what is fair in human society and who decide that, how do people respond to what they think is unfair when it's not within their power to restore justice, and why can people opinion about justice differ. These are questions I know plague many people from time to time. After all, we all encounter situations in our lives where the topic of justice comes to the forefront. Because some event that we feel unfair, we feel a great deal of indignation, and it can be very difficult to influence them to restore justice or to come to terms with them. In this video, I will show you and I will describe you. Also, we'll look at justice from different angles in order to get all the answers we need to help us from right attitude toward it. And to begin with, I think in order to teach people to love justice, you have to show them result of injustice. Let's discuss what kind of justice we have. Natural justice. Natural justice is very simple. Everything that fits into the fundamental laws, into law of life, law of universe, and law of being is fair. In general, in nature, there is no such thing as a justice, but rather such a concept of regularity, and it's subject to law of being, whether these laws are just, fair or not. There is no way to think. It makes no sense. We have the world as we have it, and law exists and those laws exist. And regardless of our opinion of them, we are forced to adapt them and forced to obey them. We can supplement them with our own laws and rules, but we cannot replace or change them. Therefore, it even makes to sense to think that about justice or unfairness of law of life and law of nature. We just need to identify them, study them, see what law exists in this world, and in order to understand why something happens, how best to react to it. We just need to know how we are more comfortable living according to law of being, law of life, law of universe. If, after all, we apply to natural phenomena such a concept of justice, we can say that the force in this world decides what's fair and what is not. In particular, who is right in this or that situation from the point of view of nature, the one who happens to be stronger. That's the one, I will use the one that third person, that the one is who won. It means who achieved his goal. No more, no less. Whatever the force that sets in rules, if it's allowed a living creature to implement its idea to achieve its goal, it was effective and efficient, and therefore correct, therefore fair. That's by the law of life. If someone dissatisfied with it, it's his problem. To natural justice, to injustice, one discontent has no relations whatsoever. The world lives according to them. The laws, it will never adjust them according to someone's personal opinion. Therefore, to argue about justice in nature is simply a completely foolish thing. For example, when predator crushes a physically weak victim, it makes no sense to reproach him for inhumanity, cruelty, aggressiveness, and injustice, for choosing a weak victim in order to defeat him, rather than the one who could fight back. All this reasoning is irrelevant. If predator has achieved his goal of catching his satire himself, then he is right. He used correct, reasonable, efficient force for his survival, acting according to law of nature. Where does this notion even fit in here, and for what purpose? But in human society, things work a little differently. Now I would like to talk about social justice, which is very important, which is related to our society. Another thing is social justice, which is a set of recommended principles and unspoken rules that operate in human society. In other words, we think justice is a right from our point of view, both individual and social. It's almost entirely an artificial concept. People have invented justice as a set of rules of life, principles, and requirements of person which is desirable but not obligatory. What does it mean by this? Thus, the law will not punish you for your unfair behavior, for not conforming for those norms that are perceived as fair. You can only be morally condemned for your injustice. We do not take an unfair act against unfair people into account. I said this notion is almost artificial, not entirely artificial, but because there are certain aspects of our behavior that to be discussed below, which from birth make us prone to evaluate our own and others' behavior in terms of our acceptability or unacceptability in certain situations. This innate disposition of prerequisite for forming our beliefs about justice. Also, in general, justice is a social concept what is proper and it exists only in human society. As exact as we usually understand it, it used to evaluate our own and others' actions. You may not be fair, but if you are an unfair person, but you do not violate basic laws, no one has the right to punish you for your injustice. In other words, it's up to you, to each individual, to be or not to be fair. We voluntarily agree to conform to the criteria of fairness if we think it's good for us. What's the benefit of fairness? Let's discuss about. We have some benefits. Okay, the benefits of justice. Why do we, for the most part, have no serious obligation to anyone in terms of our behavior that does not go beyond the law? Nevertheless, try to be fair and expect the same from other people. This is because our idea of justice help us to move away from the cruel and merciless law of nature, which call for the destruction of weak, which any of us can become in certain situations at certain times. If we live exclusively by the law of nature, you may say the law of jungle, then it will be a life of constant fear of cruelty, violence, anarchy. Nature has a law of force and harsh and all that, but obeying it completely, we will make our lives very hard and dangerous. It's like with the rules of game or rules of road. If there is no rules, then the game simply won't work, and roads, for example, will be mess and extremely dangerous to drive on. This is the same in life society, where not only basic laws but also unspoken rules are responsible for order, stability, safety, and comfort. The main benefit of justice is to limit a person to doing whatever he wants just because he can do it. This restriction can be either internal or external. If you think it's unfair to do a certain thing to people, you may not do it and condemn other people for doing it unfairly. A sense of justice is both internal and external sensor. Otherwise, people will solve all issues only by force, as it wildness and it will create such wolf-like condition in which no one can feel safe. But it's not enough to call for justice. One must try to uphold in both by basic laws, by special treatment, those who behave unjustly, unfairly. For example, it may be a matter of condemning, ignoring, and not accepting people those behavior falls outside of society, notion of justice. And when possible, the basic laws should also be used to punish those who act unfairly toward others. And some people has an innate sense of justice. Let's discuss about. In psychological literature, you can read about such cases that prove that a person has innate sense of justice, in form of accepting or not accepting of consequences of some his or her actions. Suppose a person has done something wrong and has a punished for it. Intuitively, he understands that punishment he received it deserved. For offense he committed. So he accept and therefore it's fair. Other words, people from birth feel connection between the deeds and have committed and the consequences associated with them. I will not give examples in such cases. We do not need them now. And the main thing is to understand the essence of the whole. And the whole precisely the ability to understand and accept the consequences of one's action. Therefore, my opinion on this matter is follows. I consider I consider the sense of justice to be acquired quality rather than an innate one. What's innate in my view is ability to relate actions to their consequences. It's our instinctive ability to see cause and effect connection. And then everything is subjective with respect to justice and is formed as we gain certain experience and knowledge. People often have different perceptions of justice in similar situations because they have different ideas about them. Somewhere they see suffering and punishment of others is deserved and therefore as fair, and somewhere with different information they see clear injustice, even though the situation may be exactly the same. It's not only egoistic interest of individual who see justice where he or she wants to see it and does not see it where he or she doesn't want to see it. It's also a matter of each of us having a limited perception of the situation that we undertake to judge. We can look at each case from different angle depending on that we want about it, what we want about it. And we often do not know enough to judge what's fair and what is not. For example, someone is convicted a crime that he did not commit, but who will know about it if there is no proof of his innocence? If the prosecution is convincing enough to prove his guilt, many people will consider the punishment deserved and therefore fair. But if defendant lawyer does a good job, then people's opinion will change and they will consider any punishment to the person undeserved, believing in his innocence. And the interesting thing is that truth about such case is may never be known because no one needs it. Either the prosecution, which only wants to convict the person, nor the defender who needs to defend himself. In such cases, it's hard to judge what's fair and what's not when you don't know all the details what happened, but people do it anyway, thinking they think that they know enough, know that's what's going on. Needless to say, they are often wrong. So there is often conscious in society as to what is fair and what's not fair. Egoism is to greatly influence people's opinions concerning justice of various events and positions. They often have a contradiction thoughts about this when it's come to themselves. For example, people may think that economic inequality is unfair when they themselves belong to stratum of society that cannot be called affluent. At the same time, they agree that not everyone should receive the same remuneration for their work, given that each person's productivity as well as its complexity varies. Therefore, they do not agree when those who work less than them and those work is less difficult are paid as much as they are. After all, what happens? Someone spends a lot of time and money on getting a good education, thanks to which he can do it because it's difficult mental work, which is not everyone can do. And someone just sweeps a broom doing the work that everyone can do. How is it possible to assess the work of such people in the same way? Let's try to explain it. First of all, to yourself. When you want to be no worse than those who live better than you, at the same time you are against all those who are lower than you that receive the same reward as you do. Ego forces us to judge different about justice at the same time. That's why many people sincerely believe that their work should be valued more highly and that remuneration of they receive is for their work is unfair and therefore should be greater. Whenever we touch on issues related to justice, people may have different opinions on them because both because of information they possess and on these topics and because of their own selfish interests. We are often not impartial about justice. We are just as often do not objective about it. And yet, the main purpose of justice is to create a society in which people can live together in harmony, where everyone feels safe, receives the pay they deserve, and receive adequate justice, which can be regarded as fair. This is the meaning of justice. It enables us to live according to our own, more human and laws rather than that nature offers us. Therefore, it's not a notion that can be used in personal interest or manipulative purposes, when we approach the same actions of different people with different standards in order to condemn some people and justify others only because it's convenient and simply desirable for us. Otherwise, what's the point of abandoning the harsh law of nature wanted to improve our lives? I mean, all people, if they will are replaced by other, no less harsh law in which people are guided by double standards, so that again we can have like wildlife in which not who is right but who is strong will be right. A disordered view of justice will not make the world fair and therefore safer and more comfortable place for living. Fighting for justice. From the foregoing, it will be logical to conclude that is the interest of most people form of truly just fair society in which justice like freedom and material well-being and security and other important things will be the main value that this society will serve, in which will chant and defend, and everything of value in this world must be fought for. Fought not only against circumstances, nature, other people, but also against oneself, against our own selfishness, our own limitations, and our own enlightenment, because of which we cannot adhere to all these important values, often making choices in favor of our desires, usually short-sighted ones, instead of acting reasonably, following necessary rules in order to maintain order in society and in our own lives. The less mature society, the more unfair it is, and just as individual is unfair to extent that he or she is immature. Only infantilism of most people can drive them to live the way they want, rather than the way things need to be in order. Therefore, in my opinion, the struggle of justice against injustice must be reduced to making society more mature. One may even say wiser, if it's not all, then many people, especially those who have more opportunities in this society, will understand that it's better live in a fair world than in world dominated by the law of nature, albeit somewhat modified to give them more human appearance, but no less cruel or merciless towards the weak. And everyone has weaknesses, and if you hit them, you can destroy anyone. Cowardice, immaturity, laziness, and selfishness are the enemies of justice. A cowardly person is ready to justify a strong man who is acting unjustly because he is afraid to challenge him, afraid to rebel against injustice in order to bring order to society, to a particular place and to a particular situation. And the fight for, let's say, the truth requires courage among other things. To sit back and bushes tucking one's tail, it means to allow them evil to force to establish its own order. Immature person does unjust thing without thinking, unfair thing without thinking of the consequences. Such as person can do injustice being both strong and weak. He simply goes along with his desires, not understanding the consequences of satisfying them. Lazy people do not participate in anything at all, no matter what and how they think. They simply don't want to move away from any value of slightest, and until they themselves suffer too much from the some evil, they won't move. And when they do to move, it's too late to change anything, at least a small way. After all, an unfair society can go very far in madness when its individual members will allow themselves too much, and then it will be difficult to stop them. Well, selfish people can change their view of justice many times, depending on how much they benefit from it. To some extent, this is a manifestation of flexibility of mind, but it also manifestation of immaturity. When you are selfish, it's not so much serving as you're harming you. Well, for example, you can use the dominance of corruption for personal egoistic purposes, or in a particular situation, in a person solve some issues with its help. And at the same time, the same corruption will pose a great threat to a person because of he will live unpredictable anarchy society where any order law can be circumvented and ignored thanks to bribes. In such system, anyone become a victim of arbitrary, arbitrariness, and people who are too selfish tend to think very narrowly. They rarely think about such large scale things as the life of society, the whole, even if they are directly affected. They think only at themselves, the local scale. That's why they're interested in the situational justice, not in justice general. The myopic falls them most of them. Let's say a fair society. What kind of society we do we need? As we know now, understand the struggle of justice is very difficult because it's the struggle of man with his weaknesses, because of which he is not ready to follow and hide ideals, act as he should, rather than as he would like to, for the sake, order, and common good. Therefore, the construction of truly fair society, affair its entirely random part, is a very difficult task that cannot be solved at once. A gradual approach is required when the emphasis will be on educating people, on special education which will prepare not only narrow specialists but people who are aware of responsibility for the quality of society in which they live. People need to show and explain how everything in this world is interconnected, and therefore what they, for their own well-being, need to be able to take care not only for themselves but also environment in which they live, and therefore other people on whom you depend on some degree. Our civilization itself is a structure of human life that requires high organization, high order, and high coordination of interests in many groups. You can't build a highly organized society with a competent division of labor and therefore very productive. If you do not think of systematically to be able to coordinate everything with everything, it's this is what people need to be taught so they can understand why they need justice and their other values and how they will affect how they will affect their own lives. Justice as a product of a civilization, it requires a person to show even more exalted qualities, which is not easy to develop. But the pursuit of such development, the struggle for justice and other important values. One should not contrast, people should not should not contrast as a just society with a society of abundance by thinking that no justice as well as freedom and many other higher values are needed if people have everything they need for well-fed and beautiful life. If someone thinks that stuffing one's stomach is enough to make one's life good and one need to think about any kind of or fair life, it's greatly mistaken. People well-being depend on what rules they live by. The better person is able to fulfill himself by doing it a lot of good for society and thereby contributing to high standards of living in society. The less he worries about his physical survival, the less he feels restricted everything and therefore afraid to make extra move, send an extra word, share the idea that could be of much use. A frightened, limited, depressed person is not a creator, but a pure robot who can only do what he is all told to do, not only from under his stick out of that fear. The productivity of such persons will be very low, and will his creation expression will be very low. Such people create nothing great. They can only limitate others at best. Therefore, without justice, freedom, order, people will live lives that are too primitive to make the necessary to contribution to their own and their general welfare. As more well-fed and developed society will be, and also society will always be one in which there is more justice, more freedom, order, in which people have the opportunity to realize their creative potential rather than being forced to constantly grovel before those who, through the brute force and intimidation, impose their will on people. A fair, let's say, a fair life is a life with a long planning horizon. A fair society is person where a person does not live for one day because of his uncertainty about tomorrow. He can look far ahead and calculate his future and that of his children because he knows that if he lives by the reasonable life rules enforced in such society, he will do well. Justice, one of the most useful tools with which to create a paradise, a single society, or in the whole earth by teaching, persuading, if necessary, forcing to live by reasonably human and understandable rules which everyone will be able to abide by. And the alternative to these rules is a brutal law of nature, where all the inherent advantages and disadvantages. I believe that such laws have more of later. I would like to stop here because I think uh, I have made long video, I think, but we can discuss many hours about justice. What does it mean justice for you and for me? Also on YouTube, you can find many interesting videos about justice, lectures, you can find articles, you can find many opinions about justice. Also, please, my dear friends, share your own opinion below the comments because it will be interesting for us to read. What does it mean justice for you? Please, please write below your own view about justice, especially in your society, because I think many of you watching me from different countries, and it will be interesting to others to know more about other cultures because some countries has uh, more they, let's say they have more justice, they're more mature. We have some mature immature societies. In mature societies, as we discussed, we have justice. In mature, we have very low justice, and the mature society developed. Unfortunately, in mature society we have injustice, and that society is very just developing. And also, I will not force you to follow or click the button below. It's all depend on you. You are free and you are welcome to watch my all free videos. And also, thank you, thank you for your watching, and I appreciate for your comments on Instagram, also on YouTube, and also you can write below that what kind of topics you would like that I will discuss with you next week. We have many other topics in our lecture, but I would like to share you my own experience, own knowledge about this. And please write below what kind of topics you would like to hear on YouTube or watch or listen. And okay, thank you again, and we will see you next week.